ABC 10 News at 5 starts right now.
2 Marines from Southern California killed in the Kabul bombing. What we're learning about them as the U.S. continues to warn about the potential for more attacks in Afghanistan.
Plus, after 16 attempts, RFK's assassin Sirhan Sirhan gets parole. Who supported his release?
And San Diego is mandating city workers get a COVID-19 vaccine. How the labor unions are responding.
ABC 10 News at 5 starts now.
The U.S. is moving forward with evacuations in Afghanistan despite the threat of more attacks. Good evening. I'm Kimberly Hunt.
And I'm Lindsay Pena. 13 service members, including 2 from Southern California, were killed in yesterday's blast. We'll have more on them in a moment, but we begin our coverage with ABC's Elizabeth Schulze.
The race to evacuate American citizens and allies in Afghanistan is now even more urgent and dangerous. President Biden's national security team warning another terror attack in Kabul is likely.
Look, the mission there being performed is dangerous, and it's come with a significant loss of American personnel.
In the deadliest day for U.S. troops in Afghanistan in more than a decade, at least 13 American service members died in Thursday's suicide bombing outside the Kabul airport, including 11 Marines, 1 Navy medic, and 1 Army soldier.
We obviously don't want to see any more casualties. That's why we are monitoring the threat streams very closely.
The Pentagon now says it was just one ISIS-K suicide bomber who carried out the attack. At least 160 Afghans were killed, hundreds more wounded, after they'd gathered in crowds at the airport gates, desperate to flee the country. The Pentagon says more than 5,400 people are still inside the airport awaiting flights. U.S. officials still screening some arriving at the gates as the clock ticks on the president's August 31st withdrawal deadline.
We have the ability to include evacuees on U.S. military airlift out of Afghanistan until the very end.
In an internal note, Secretary of State Antony Blinken thanked the diplomats involved in this massive evacuation effort, but he didn't say if the U.S. will keep a diplomatic presence in Afghanistan after the withdrawal deadline. Elizabeth Schulze, ABC News, Washington.
2 Marines from Southern California were among those who died in the suicide bombing attack on the Kabul airport. ABC 10 News reporter Mimi Alcala is joining us with more on those fallen service members. Mimi.
Hi, Lindsay. Yeah, we're outside of Camp Pendleton in front of this growing memorial here where people have been coming out throughout the day to leave flowers and notes here honoring the lives lost in that attack and, of course, showing support for the troops still in Afghanistan.
Godspeed and Semper Fi. May they rest in peace.
While the Department of Defense has not officially identified the 13 service members and won't until 24 hours after all next of kin notifications are complete, relatives and loved ones have confirmed several names with ABC News. We know of a few Marines that were either from or stationed in Southern California, including Kareem Nakui, who was previously stationed here at Camp Pendleton, but from Norco, just a couple of hours away. Officials from the city of Norco say he's survived by his parents and siblings, and that his name will be put up on a memorial wall there. Wyoming's governor also confirmed Riley McCollum was killed in the attack. It appears McCollum was also stationed here locally before his deployment and had a child on the way with his wife. We also know of Hunter Lopez, a SoCal native whose parents worked for the Riverside County Sheriff's Department. According to the department, he hoped to become a deputy after returning from deployment. A lot of heavy hearts across the country and county today. Marine Corps veteran John Price stopped by the growing memorial at Camp Pendleton to pay his respects Friday afternoon.
It hurts. Should have never happened. I was stationed here at this base years ago, and I have a connection with these Marines, and it's just tragic.
Teresa Terry, retired U.S. Army and U.S. Navy hospital corpsman, tells us many veterans are feeling helpless at this time. So she decided to plan a candlelight vigil in Pacific Beach Friday night, saying we can't let this moment pass without honoring the brave service members.
Anybody that wants to come out to show their support, just reflect and be together in fellowship.
And you can see flowers and some water for flowers being put out right now. That candlelight vigil tonight will be held at Tower 22 in Pacific Beach at 7 o'clock tonight. And Teresa welcomes everyone to join. We're live from Camp Pendleton. Mimi Alcala, ABC 10 News.
Powerful image there. Thank you, Mimi. A Poway family endured 6 Taliban checkpoints and 9 hours of uncertainty before finally escaping Afghanistan. This evening, they're back home.
Because we have passport, probably they shoot us. All my body was like cold. This is the end of my life.
Yasin Roish, his wife and 2 children arrived in Afghanistan in late July to visit family. Ready to leave in mid-August, the Taliban takeover halted their exit. A friend put Roish in touch with someone at the U.S. Embassy who told him where they needed to be precisely at the Kabul airport and what time. After a gauntlet of Taliban checkpoints and several threats, they saw U.S. Marines and knew they were finally safe. Roish says that he remains fearful for the rest of his family in Kabul. You can stay with ABC 10 News for continuing coverage of the turmoil in Afghanistan. Coming up new at 5:30, we'll take a look at what local organizations are doing to help families resettle in San Diego County.
After more than a century behind bars, Robert F. Kennedy's assassin was granted parole today by a California board. It was Sirhan Sirhan's 16th attempt. ABC 10 News reporter Rena Nakano is joining us from Donovan State Prison. And Rena, today's ruling comes after 2 of RFK's sons said they support this release.
Hey, yeah, his past attempts kept getting denied because the commissioner said that he was not showing any signs of remorse. But today, the commissioner, as well as Kennedy's son, said that he should be released. With a paper towel handkerchief tucked in his prison shirt pocket, 77-year-old Sirhan Sirhan sat in front of a computer, waving to his participants in his virtual parole hearing. Sirhan has been behind bars since assassinating Senator Robert F. Kennedy at the Ambassador Hotel in 1968. Sirhan has said growing up during the conflict in the Middle East affected his judgment. Those listening into Friday's hearing included the senator's son Douglas, as well as Paul Schrade, who was also shot but survived. This was also the first time prosecutors did not attend the hearing seeking to keep Sirhan in prison. His last 15 parole requests were not granted because of lack of remorse and persisting anger issues. Sirhan said he does feel remorse for his actions and added in the last 2 years he took 20 self-help classes and has become, quote, a humble, balanced man. After being stabbed in the neck by an inmate at Donovan State Prison in 2019, Sirhan said he has been worried about his safety. So right now his focus is to get parole and reunite with his ailing brother who lives in Pasadena. The senator's son, Douglas Kennedy, said in the hearing, quote, I'm grateful today to see him as a human being worthy of compassion and love. I do wish him well in his life and rehabilitation. Sirhan's attorney read a letter by RFK Jr., who also pushed for granting his parole, saying, quote, should he be released, I offer to be a guiding friend for him. The commissioner ultimately voted to grant parole with conditions. First, he must go to transitional housing for 6 months. This is if he is not deported by ICE. He must next take alcohol counseling and do weekly check-ins with a parole officer. Lastly, he must meet with a therapist to assess his mental health. In the end of the hearing, Sirhan thanked the participants and gave 2 thumbs up. Now, getting parole does not automatically mean he gets released. The parole board has 120 days to review this decision. Then it goes to the governor, who then has 30 days to review this case as well, in which case he has the decision to make here. Either reverse, uphold, modify, send it to the full board, or take no action. I'm live out here in Otay Mesa. Rena Nakano, ABC 10 News.
We will wait and see. Thank you, Rena. Now to the latest on coronavirus. A new U.S. intelligence report says the origins of COVID-19 still remain unknown, but it does clear China's leaders of knowing about the virus before the outbreak began. And here are the latest numbers on coronavirus in San Diego County. More than 1,800 new cases reported today. That's out of nearly 23,000 tests. There were 8 new deaths. The city of San Diego says it will require city workers to be fully vaccinated against COVID. A notification sent out last night says they have until November 2nd to prove they're vaccinated. ABC 10 News reporter Adam Rakusin shows us how the labor unions are responding.
The city of San Diego becoming the latest in a series of public and private entities to require COVID-19 vaccination for all employees. A letter sent out Thursday night reads, "The vaccine requirement is a condition of continued employment." The letter says employees must be fully vaccinated and provide proof of full vaccination by November 2nd unless they agree to another date, or an employee requests a medical or religious exemption and a reasonable accommodation is granted.
Do government entities have the ability to mandate their employees get vaccinated?
Yes.
Dan Eaton is a local attorney and legal analyst.
The interesting wrinkle with the city, of course, is that many of its workers are unionized. So the city has to negotiate over the impact of this decision to mandate vaccination, but not the basic decision to mandate vaccination.
In its letter, the city says it's negotiating with its recognized employee organizations. According to the city's website, there are 6, covering everything from fire and police to attorneys and skilled trade and labor positions. ABC 10 News reached out to all 6 groups for a comment on the mandate. In a statement, the head of the San Diego City Firefighters said they support the mayor's decision to protect the health of city workers and the public, but questioned the lack of detail about exemptions, writing the recent letter was unnecessarily threatening to workers, as it coupled a looming deadline with uncertainty. The head of the San Diego Police Officers Association says it is still in negotiations with the city and it's too early to comment. The city says it chose November 2nd because that is 10 weeks after the FDA approval was announced. ABC 10 News asked the city if it would offer testing for employees who choose not to get vaccinated and what happens if someone declines both. A spokesperson for the city says they're currently in negotiations and these discussions are ongoing. Adam Rakusin, ABC 10 News.
Today, the city of Encinitas announced it will also require vaccinations for union employees. The city said it reached an agreement to require all represented workers to be vaccinated. The city had already announced a vaccine mandate for city employees earlier this month. All union and non-union employees will be required to present proof of vaccination starting October 7th.
The deadline to vote by mail in the recall election is Monday. Forms are available on the registrar's website or at the registrar's office in Kearny Mesa. You can also get them at the post office, public libraries, and the DMV. If you miss the deadline, you can register conditionally and vote provisionally by going to the registrar's office or a voting location.